Hi friends, my name is Bhavya Mangla. I'm IATF qualified author having a total experience of more than 32 years. I'm again back with a very interesting topic related to diversity, equity and inclusion as per ISO 30415. And today I'm going to talk about clause number 8, which is related to human resource management. And by the time this video will end, you will understand what exactly is the meaning of human resource management life cycle as per ISO 30415. What are the 9 different steps which are there? How to understand and interpret that, and how the organization can effectively understand and implement all those things so that they can effectively implement diversity, equity, and inclusion. When we look around ourselves, our life cycle, so when a child is born, so after that, what happens? The child goes to the school and then the child grows up. Maybe the child starts working as an adult. And then maybe after working for some time, the child may think, or maybe the adult may think about settling down, getting married, having children. And as the cycle progresses, when that guy gets old, after that, that guy may think about retiring from the job. And then one fine day, maybe after 70, 80, 90 or 100 years, that particular person dies. So that is a life cycle of a human being. Something similar happens with a human resource management life cycle also. There are 9 different steps which are there in the entire life cycle of human resource management. And once we understand through the context of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we can understand that how an organization can take care with respect to all these concepts while considering about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So let's start with the first step. The first step is talking about workforce planning. When we talk about workforce planning, primarily our intent is to understand that what is the current and the future workforce planning, supply and demand, what kind of knowledge, skill and abilities are required. Once we understand that, then we can think about what are the possible opportunities and risks which are related to that, considering diversity, equity and inclusion. We can also look into that present workforce composition, considering the demographic profiles, sectors, region, color, maybe any religion, and all those things. We also need to look into that with respect to the existing workforce and the availability, what can be the possible risk and opportunities are there. Then it's also important to measure that where we stand. So I think what we can do is that we can understand about the workforce availability versus existing manpower, and we can have a data with respect to the existing gap. And once an organization takes care about that, then it's very easy to have an effective workforce planning. The organization can understand the risk and opportunities, and they can also see that how can make sure to become a more inclusive organization. Then the second very interesting step is talking about remuneration. Very important step. And why it is important is because unless and until an organization is very clear about their policies with respect to the remuneration, it is very difficult to ensure that they are taking care of the entire, all the people who are working in the organization. So for example, whether they are putting up or whether deciding about the pays and benefits based on like something performance linked, or it is variable, or it is fixed, how it is. Then also there can be some benefits with respect to remuneration which is non-monetary. It could be paid leaves, retirement benefit, health care, flexible times, and all those things could be there. So considering diversity, equity and inclusion, maybe the organization can look into that what are the different principles and objectives which should be incorporated as a part of policy. Then another important thing is that when the organization is thinking about pays and benefits, whether they are fair, equitable, transparent, and they are also making sure that they are communicating to all the people clearly. Then in case there is any variation in remuneration, considering the gender, geographic location, because at times it happens that we think that for male we should give more salary, for female we should give less salary, or people of this particular color should get more salary in comparison to the other person. So it is important to look into it so that we can see that whether things are okay or not. There can be some performance indicator. It can be related to number of complaints and dispute which are related to pays and benefit. What kind of satisfaction or dissatisfaction level is there with respect to fairness of remuneration and other policies, and what is the present gaps and how that gap can be filled with respect to gender and other possible things. These are all the things that can be taken care of. The third step, the most important and the crucial step, is about recruitment. When we talk about recruitment, primarily the intent is that how we are attracting, sourcing, assessing, and selecting the employees, which is related to knowledge, skill, and ability. Well, we think in context of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we also need to see that what are the different possible channels we are using so that we can have people without any bias, without any disparity in gender. We are not thinking about any socio-economic things and anything like that, the people are from this particular group or that particular group. Then also, while recruitment, we also look into the risk and possible opportunities with respect to the bias and discrimination for the recruitment. It's important to ensure that we are transparent, fair, and non-discriminatory while thinking about the recruitment, and we should avoid any potential conscious or unconscious bias. Then we also need to take care that when we are publicizing about any job, it should be in such a language everyone can understand. See, a country like India, there are different languages. If we are focusing on a particular state, then we also need to make sure that whether people in that particular state can understand that particular language or not. We also need to take care with respect to skills and abilities from the different cultural backgrounds. And once we implement all that, we can measure the performance of recruitment based on the number of complaints or incidents, or maybe the allegations related to bias and discrimination, how many number of offers are accepted or not accepted, and what about the workforce turnover and the retention data. That can give us a lot of information with respect to that. The fourth stage is talking about the onboarding. So once the recruitment drive is done, now we need to see that how we need to onboard that particular person and to make sure that it should be a smooth sail for that particular person. For that, it's important to see that how the organization is taking care with respect to the onboarding, considering maybe any structured training or maybe the on-job training to provide the opportunities and proper communication to everyone. Then while onboarding, are they taking care with respect to any specific individual need, maybe with the health condition, maybe a person has some disability and a person cannot move independently. So whether something can be provided to make sure that onboarding is done smoothly and effectively. Then some of the requirement with respect to onboarding can include some learning and development techniques through mentoring or coaching that is required. And it is also important that when we are doing the onboarding, we need to make sure that we are taking care of diversity, equity, and inclusion so that we are not giving prominence to someone and we are not giving prominence to someone else. Organization can also think about some helpline number. They can think about employee resource group, ERG, so that they can take care about anything, issues which are related to diversity, equity, inclusion, or maybe there's any complaint with respect to that. And once an organization takes care about that, then they can measure their performance with respect to onboarding while looking into some of the data like how many people are staying or living within 6 months after completing the onboarding, maybe the number of complaints related to bias and discrimination, and there can be many more indicators with respect to that. Then after that, the next very interesting thing is about learning and development. When we talk about learning and development, we are talking about the structured approach that an organization is having so that they can make sure that all those people who are working in the organization, what can be done to enhance their knowledge. Now for that, it's important to first of all understand that what is their present knowledge, skill, and ability, then to identify the gap with respect to that, and that gap can be identified maybe during recruitment, during onboarding, or maybe during performance management review. And then there can be different formal and informal approaches which can be used, which can be done through online, individual, on the job, coaching, mentoring, and there can be many other things can be done. A special attention needs to be given to those people who may be coming from some weaker background, who have not gone through that exposure which the people in the cities may be getting, and there should be adequate resources to take care with respect to that. Organization also needs to make sure that the people who are the trainers, who are the coaches or the mentors, they have to use the inclusive thought process so that they can make sure that people who are coming with respect to learning and development, they can feel comfortable with respect to that. Some of the ways in which organization can think about the monitoring is the number of people who are participating in learning and development, what kind of satisfaction level is there, and there can be many more factors with respect to that. Then the next very interesting concept is about performance management. Now we have recruited the person, we have done the onboarding, we have done the learning and development. Then maybe at a certain periodicity, we also need to see that how the people are behaving in the organization, whether it is as per the expectation or not. And if not, then what is the reason behind that? So with respect to that, certain things which are important is like when we are doing the performance management, we need to encompass and recognize and reward all those people considering uh, inclusive behavior, and also take care that there should not be any discriminatory behavior with respect to any person. Then during that, it's also important to take care that we need to do the performance management to ensure that diversity, equity, inclusions, the principles are embedded, they are fair, impartial, constructive, and inclusive. The different ways in which it can be monitored is maybe any adverse or any disproportionate impact, the level of dissatisfaction or the dissatisfaction which is there with respect to that. Then many companies also have a system of succession planning. That is the next stage. When we talk about succession planning, the intent is that we also want to see that people at their certain stage, certain people may leave, certain people may retire, then certain people will upgrade. So rather than waiting that somebody is leaving and then think about grooming, why not think earlier and have some succession plan with respect to different stages? So that is all with respect to the succession planning. So when the organization is thinking about succession planning, it's important to have a diverse pool of potential successors who can take up different leadership roles and the critical position. Again, it's important to take care with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion to make sure that whatever succession planning we are doing, it is transparent and it is without any bias. And it's also important that all those people who are working in the organization, they should have proper communication with respect to that, and there should be a grooming process so that people are ready for the succession also. That's very important. And the measure with respect to succession planning effectiveness can be the number of or the type of complaints, or it can be with respect to the satisfaction or the dissatisfaction level with respect to that. Then the next is about workforce mobility. Now, there can be a possibility that organizations which are having multi-locational, which may be in different states of a country or maybe in different parts of the world, they may have a process of putting the people in different locations. So, what is the process with respect to that, and how an organization can take care to make sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion are being taken care at the time of that? So, some of the steps include to take care that in case there is any temporary assignment, in case there is any expatriation, impatration, or repatriation, or maybe when you are transferring the people from one location to another, so at that time, whether the organization is having a proactive approach, inclusive approach to make sure that things are being taken care in a systematic manner. What are the risks and opportunities that are being reviewed at the time of mobility process? Then when a person is accepting or declining any work assessment assignment, then how it is being taken? Are we taking it as a negative way, or in case a person wants to relocate in future, are we going to reconsider that, or we may think that since that person has refused earlier, so now we will not give that person any chance? If we talk about the measures in which we can check the effectiveness, it can be the percentage of workforce who has accepted or declined the mobility opportunities, any kind of complaints which are coming with respect to that, and all those things can be there. And the last and the most interesting thing is about cessation of employment. We started with thinking about that how we can recruit a person. Now this is the last step of the life cycle, wherein maybe a person is leaving the job, maybe a person is retiring from that particular job, maybe now there is no opportunity in that particular job, so that's why the organization decides that they don't want the services of that person, or there can be many other reasons that why the job is not getting terminated. So in all those cases, the organization needs to make sure that there should be proper policy, process, and the practices to ensure impartiality, sensitivity, and there should be proper respect and due regard with respect to confidentiality and well-being of the person. Now, there could be a possibility that in case a person is not well, or maybe there is a capability issue, rather than terminating a person, organization can think about redeployment for some alternative work, or maybe some other flexible work environment they can think about it. Then another thing could be that they can use some employee resource groups for consultations and to help the person to groom further and to make sure that that person can see the possibility of improving further. But in case things are not happening, then it is the responsibility of the organization to see that they should have a proper data with respect to the workforce turnover and attrition, which is happening maybe because of resignation or maybe retirement, redundancy, or maybe the dismissal. And once the organization has a systematic way of doing that, then organization can certainly maintain that particular process to see that whether things are happening effectively or not. There can be a system of exit interview which can help the organization to understand that why people are leaving and what improvement can be done with respect to them. So if you see, I talked about the 9 different stages with respect to the human resource life cycle. And if an organization effectively and systematically implement considering diversity, equity, and inclusion, they can always make sure that employee retention will always be high, the satisfaction level will always be high, the organization is certainly going to grow sustainably, and it will be the most valuable company that any company or any organization may be thinking to work with. So this is all with respect to clause number 8 about human resource life cycle. My next video will again be with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion ISO 30415, where I'll be talking more with respect to clause number 9, 10, and 11. Regularly, I'm getting a lot of feedback from your side, and they're helping me to understand your expectations. So please do continue that. And in case you want to understand a little bit more about this particular video, you'll find a link below. If you click that, you'll find a blog there, and there you'll find this information in much more detail. And in case you are liking these kind of blogs and videos, you can always share with your friends and colleagues, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and my website, bhavyamangala.com. Thank you.